Hey, this is Judah Mantel from SceneForge Studio, and in this video I'm going to go over how to use the mobile camera tracking functionality built right into SceneForge. It's super cool and a lot of fun to use. Now, before we get started, it's important to note a few things. One, you do need to have at least one camera in your scene. You're going to want to use a free-floating camera because trying to track a crane or a tripod is not going to be a good idea. And you also need to have a device that supports Google's AR Core or Apple's AR Kit. I'm using an iPad Pro 11-inch because it has the LiDAR sensor, which results in much more accurate tracking, but it will work with other devices. So I have this scene here with a camera, a little puppy on this little card. This is a green screen footage, as we'll see in future releases, and this stand-in. So to set this up, all we have to do is go into shoot mode and open up this mobile camera tracking section. Now, when you open up the app on your phone, make sure it's updated to the latest version. You'll see the local IP address being displayed on the device's screen. Now, you could type this into this thing here, or you could just click connect, because what's cool is that as long as they're on the same Wi-Fi network, they do need to be in the same Wi-Fi network to work, it'll actually discover it automatically. So give it a second once the two are synced up, and you'll see now we have them connected. All right, so I changed the lighting here a bit so it's a little easier to see what's going on. But once they're connected, you'll see that I can actually control the device just by moving it around in 3D space. And this controls the rotation as well as position, so I can move it up and down and all of that. Now on the device itself, of course, you see a preview of what you're actually looking at, kind of like a real camera viewfinder. And you can also control all of the settings such as focal length, focus distance, and aperture, which is super useful for just controlling things remotely from the computer. Away from the computer. You can also take snapshots and toggle recording, which obviously is very important. Now, I like to think about this device in two different ways. One, either as a magic window kind of into your scene, so you can walk around your real space through a first-person perspective, seeing what it looks like for visualization purposes, or you can use this to control your actual camera. So that's why you would be able to take snapshots and change the focal length and all that stuff. It's two different ways of looking at the same thing. So you can control the cameras using your real motion. It's great. So now let's go over these settings here. Of course, it'll show you what you're connected to. You can disconnect. You can also turn on and off position and rotational tracking. So this toggles what gets sent back and forth. So right now, both are enabled, so I can move it in all directions. But if I were to turn off position, you'll see that now only rotation is being tracked. So if I were to move this forward, back, left, and right, it wouldn't go anywhere. What that means, though, is that I can use a little joystick on the device's screen, which appears now, to move the device forward, back, left, and right, while still controlling the rotation. So it's a really great way to just add some new ways of moving the camera around without much effort. You can also turn both off, so I can turn rotation off here, and now this just acts as essentially a remote control. So there's no tracking happening. I can just move around, I can control the focal length, and it's just another great way. You can hand this off to someone for some remote access to your scene. Super useful. I'm going to turn both of these back on. And I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. So now let's go over these settings. So the next thing we have is smooth motion, which is essentially smoothing out the motion. So 0 is disabled, but if I were to make this something like 2, you'll see that it is now super smooth. Now, the lower the number, the smoother it is, because that value is essentially the speed that it takes to get to the desired position. So a higher value is super fast and therefore less smoothing applied. I find that 7 is a good balance between the realistic handheld motion without being super jittery that your viewers get nauseous. Next thing are the stream quality and stream frame rate. Now, this essentially controls the actual video feed that gets sent from your PC to your mobile device. So the quality is the compression. So lower compression results in much worse quality video feed. So you can see actually the difference over here. But it also results in lower latency between the movement and the picture. Higher quality obviously will result in higher latency, but on most Wi-Fi networks, it'll probably be fine. Next, of course, is the frame rate. Now, by default, it's set to 30, but you can go as low as 24, which is still pretty smooth, very cinematic, or you can go as high as 60. So when you're doing this with almost 100% compression and at 60 frames a second, it looks great. And you have this really great viewfinder into your scene, and it's super easy to use and a lot of fun. So that is basically, in a nutshell, an overview of the way this system works. That's how you can get started with tracking. That's what all the controls mean. But there's still one more thing. I started tracking in the system right here at my desk, and I started facing this direction. So I'm currently facing that way. But let's say I wanted to recalibrate it so my device starts facing this way. Now, obviously, it doesn't quite work. So what we have to do is recalibrate. So there's a really handy button in the top right corner of the device, and that looks like a little crosshair. You can tap that. Now tracking will stop, so I can move this wherever I want. I'll even see a little pass-through. All I have to do is position the device where I want it to start. So this can be either facing a different direction or even on the other side of the room, so you get more room to move around. And then you press it again, so now calibration starts and tracking starts in this new position. So now I'm facing this way, but I'm still facing that way in the virtual world. So it's just another way of moving things around. If I had a huge open space, even outdoors, if my computer was near a window, I can go outside and track. So I had a whole open field, I can walk around my scene for real using this camera. Just some things to think about. It's super cool. There's a lot you can do with it. I hope you get a lot of use out of it. I hope you have a lot of fun with it. I will see you in the next video.